Well, good morning again. I'm Ellen Greenwood, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. Uh, and As the worship associate this morning, it is my privilege to welcome you to our Zoom meeting of service for the Westside Unitarian Universalist Church. I think all of us know this, but I want to remind us and hold up that Westside is a congregation where all of us are welcomed and where all of who we are is welcomed. We do have quite a few announcements this morning, so I'll get started with those. Let's see. I don't have to tell you all about the bathroom policy. You can just go to the bathroom. You might want to mute your computer. We do have, when you are at the church in person, we do have an update to our mask policy that you may have noticed on Facebook or on in the email. It goes like this. We recommend that members, friends, and guests follow CDC guidelines as they apply to you and your comfort level. Use your own discretion about wearing a mask outside during our outdoor services and activities. In other words, masks are no longer required, but please continue wearing one if it makes you feel comfortable. And we have an exciting announcement for Sunday, June 13th, which is just 3 weeks from today. Since Knoxville's Pride Fest 2021 was canceled due to the pandemic, we've decided to have our own mini Pride Fest right here at Westside. So our schedule will be that we'll have a very short and simple outdoor service at 10 a.m. It probably will only be about 20 minutes long. And then from 10:20 to 11:20, we will have games and crafts set up here on the grounds for people to participate in. And we'll have some light refreshments. And during that time, Carol, help me out with this. Reverend Carol will come inside and have a short Zoom worship service as well. And then at 11:30, that will end, and we will have our own Pride Parade. We're going to gather up by the sign on Grigsby Chapel, and we'll have a route laid out, and people can either walk with us or cheer from the sidelines. So
if you're on Zoom, you will be able to participate in the Pride Parade because I will have my trusty phone. And when the service ends, I will go on Zoom on my phone, and we will be in the parade on Zoom. So you all will get a chance to see it from my Zoom.
That's the beauty of the way we do things now. You're also invited to join us each Thursday evening for our Thursday evening conversations, adult RE. Each week is more or less a different topic, and each session is certainly standalone. So if you haven't been joining us and you can for one Thursday, please feel free to do so. The link to join can be found in the members section of the webpage and also in the Wednesday email. Our Share the Plate partner for this quarter is the Tennessee chapter of GLSEN, which stands for Gay, Lesbian, and Straight Education Network. And this is a grassroots initiative working to ensure safe schools for all students, regardless of sexual orientation and gender identity. And there are ways from the website and probably from our Facebook pages too. But if you just look for that, you can find ways to donate if you are strictly attending by Zoom. So as we move on into our worship time together, Reverend Carol will invite our Tibetan Bowls to sing. The words for our chalice lighting this morning come from Scottish mountaineer William Hutchisson Murray. Until one is committed, there is hesitancy, the chance to draw back, always ineffectiveness. Concerning all acts of initiative and creation, there is one elementary truth, the ignorance of which kills countless ideas and splendid plans, that the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would never otherwise have occurred. A whole stream of events issuing from the decision, raising in one's favor all manner of unforeseen incidents and meetings and material assistance which no man could have dreamt would have come his way. I have learned a deep respect for one of Goethe's couplets. Whatever you can do or dream you can, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it.
Thanks, Ellen. So some of you may have heard that phrase before, whatever you can do or dream you can, boldness has genius, magic, and power in it. That quote gets used quite a lot, and it's usually misattributed to, sometimes the whole passage is attributed to Goethe, sometimes it's listed as anonymous, but where it really comes from is the beginning of William Hutchisson Murray's book, The Scottish Himalayan Expedition. He wrote this in 1951 when he returned from the British Mount Everest reconnaissance expedition, which was an expedition to attempt summiting Mount Everest. He was a soldier originally, a mountain climber. He was an author. He was an environmentalist. And he was also actually a knight. So he did all kinds of things. And he was pretty big on this concept of commitment and kind of lived it. So he started mountain climbing when he was a young man just before World War II. And when the war started, he joined the Scottish Regiment of the British Infantry. And he served in Africa. So he was in Africa, and from that moment on, his whole life is just one series of stories after another about commitment. He's in Africa, and he gets captured by a German tank commander. And when he was captured by the tank commander, this tank commander asked in English, supposedly, I guess, as a joke, "Aren't you cold?" And Murray, not being fearful, replied jokingly back, "Cold as a mountaintop." And this apparently made the tank commander, who was also a climber, perk up and asked if he was a climber. And when he found out that Murray was a climber, the two of them struck up a conversation. And then this officer proceeded to do everything he could to help set Murray up as comfortably as possible as a prisoner. Now, can you imagine doing that? Can you imagine having the boldness to joke with a German tank commander when you've just been taken captive? So he's a prisoner of war, and he was a prisoner of war for 3 years. And during the war, while a prisoner of war in a German camp, he wrote his first book, which was called Mountaineering in Scotland. And he wrote it on toilet paper. Okay, can you imagine doing that? Having the commitment, doing a project so much that you would do that. And then when the Gestapo found the toilet paper book and destroyed it, he rewrote it. So can you imagine that in a German war camp? This is a lot of commitment and a lot of boldness. When the book and its sequel, which was called Undiscovered Scotland, were published after the war, they actually launched this huge new interest in mountaineering. Now, Murray had been in concentration camp for 3 years, in a prisoner of war camp for 3 years. And he was near starvation, near death. So he expected that he wouldn't be able to climb again because he was so weakened, but this was William Hutchisson Murray. So rather than retreating to a quiet life of resting and recuperating and eating good food, he instead joined this 1951 reconnaissance expedition to attempt to summit Mount Everest. And now, can you imagine doing that? This guy was bold. He didn't actually, when they climbed Everest in 51, he didn't acclimatize well. He stayed at base camp. He wasn't able to summit the mountain, but that didn't stop him. In the years that followed, he climbed a whole bunch of other mountains and wrote a whole bunch of other books about climbing. And he became a really big advocate for environmentalism in Britain. He defeated plans to build a hydroelectric dam in the area of Scotland that's the best climbing region in Scotland. It's called Ben Nevis. So he basically, led the charge to preserve that area as wilderness. He wrote over 22 books He won literary awards, and he was ultimately appointed to the most excellent order of the British Empire, which is knighthood, that honors service to the country in both war and peacetime. His autobiography was titled Evidence of Things Not Seen, and in it he highlights his insistence that faith and commitment are a cornerstone of perseverance and success. Now, most of us are not going to have lives quite as amazing as his. But just imagine what you could do if you had that level of commitment and persistence and boldness and faith in yourself or in something bigger. So, what he says at the beginning of that passage that doesn't usually get quoted is he's talking about the preparation for the expedition. And he's saying, well, we really hadn't done anything to prepare. We really hadn't gotten ready. We hadn't made plans. He says, but when I said that nothing had been done to prepare for the expedition, I erred in one important matter. We had definitely committed ourselves and were halfway out of our rut. We'd put down our passage money, booked a sailing to Bombay. And this may sound too simple, but it really is great in consequence. Because until one is committed, there is hesitancy, the chance to draw back, and always ineffectiveness. Concerning all acts of initiative and creation, there is one elementary truth, the ignorance of which kills countless ideas and splendid plans. And that is that the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would not have occurred otherwise. A whole stream of events issues from your decision, raising in one's favor all manner of unforeseen incidents and meetings and material assistance when no man could have dreamt those would have come his way. And then he says, I've learned a deep respect for one of Goethe's couplets. Whatever you can do or dream, you can begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Those lines come from a pretty bad translation of Faust, but they capture this spirit that really became William Hutchisson Murray's life. One of my teachers, his name is Lee Harris, he will say basically the same thing in modern language. He says, just take the class, just sign up for the trip, just buy the ticket, promote the book, do whatever it is, especially if you don't feel ready to do it. And that's the catch there. Even if you don't feel ready, go ahead and make the bold step. So for Murray, the simple fact of buying the ticket set in motion a whole series of other events, which would result in this historic climb up Everest, the publication of many books, saving Ben Nevis, being knighted, all sorts of things. So take a minute and think for yourself. How many times have you had a project or a goal or a dream that you really, truly, deeply wanted to fulfill? You wanted to complete that, but somehow it just never happened. You kept talking yourself out of it. You'd noodle or doodle, maybe make notes or look at websites and kind of contemplate starting, but it never really got done. Murray is telling us something important here. He's saying you have to take some solid, concrete, and costly, in terms of time or money or visibility or accountability, some kind of action that costs you something in some way, something that says no going back, or at least no going back without some sort of consequences for going back. So from this perspective, the very act of stepping forward into the breach, making the commitment, unleashes all sorts of other things, help and encouragement and synchronicity, and maybe also courage and willingness to take the next step and the next step and the next step. So let's apply this to our own lives for a minute. Now, for me, the example I will often use is getting books written. I have all kinds of books I'd like to get written, but I don't really commit to doing them. Think about something in your life that you haven't really fully committed to yet. And it doesn't matter how old you are. It's not a matter of like, oh, well, when I was young, I wanted to do this thing and now it's too late. Maybe there's some other version of it you could do. Ask yourself, what action would it take for me to be fully committed in a way that's got accountability, that would cost me something if I didn't follow through? Because really, accountability is the biggest catch here. We demonstrate true commitment by a willingness to be held accountable for our intention. Without accountability, intentions, they're kind of just wishes, which we may or may not actually attempt to fulfill. Once accountability is in place, though, we're not only more likely to follow through on those intentions, we're actually more likely to be supported by others and by circumstances that will make the next step and the next step easier. So for Murray, his idea of that support came from what he called providence, the divine. His autobiography was called Evidence of Things Not Seen, which is a reference to a passage in the Christian scriptures letter to the Hebrews, chapter 11, verse 1, that says, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. So when he said providence moves, he meant the divine. What he understood as the divine would act directly. But you don't have to necessarily believe in that kind of divine intervention for this same principle to apply. Commitment and courageous, bold action does set things in motion in ways that propel us forward. If nothing else, they change how we act and how we think. But they also make us accountable, because probably if we've made a bold commitment, someone else knows about it. So think of a situation where you've actually made a commitment, where you've taken a bold step. Maybe that was you agreed to take on a new job, or you decided to apply for the academic program, or you said yes to the marriage proposal, or you bought the ring, or you bought the house, or whatever it was. Think of something. Think of something where you took the action. Now compare that to the phrase Murray used to describe what happens before commitment. If we don't make that commitment, there is hesitancy, the chance to draw back, always ineffectiveness. We stand at that moment, at the fork in the road of choosing or not choosing, choosing by not choosing, all the time. We don't think about it, but really every single moment of our lives is that moment. Every moment we're making a choice. Maybe it's the choice to take the day off, rest, make the phone call, contact the person you haven't talked to in a long time. Or maybe to just not do it again today. Whatever it is, right? Every day we stand at a possibility of a next step. And most of us spend most of our time in that hesitancy, drawing back, and ineffectiveness. We think about the things. But the moments when we spend thinking, well, I should, I might, I could, are often a whole lot longer than when we are actually taking those bold actions. Imagine a bold action you've taken and think what would have happened to your life if you didn't do it. We are always at these choice points. Once you make that choice, maybe you'll be in connection with somebody new, or maybe some new experience will come your way. The thing about these choice points is we don't know how they're going to turn out. There's always uncertainty. There is always uncertainty when we make a commitment to take a next step, which is probably why we don't take them most of the time, right? The only way we get certainty, and I think this is why we stay in the not doing, is because we know what it's like to not take the action. There is certainty in that. There's familiarity in that. We get a guaranteed outcome of what it's going to feel like if we don't take the action, because we're already there and we already know what that's like. We do take the action, it's unpredictable, but there is some magic in it. So, what is that like for us? What would it mean? Think of one thing in your life that you've been sort of thinking, well, I probably, I could, I should, maybe and just think about it for a minute. What would be one action you could take that would be a step forward, that would be bold, that would set in motion new actions, the outcome of which you can't necessarily predict, but it's certainly going to not be hesitancy. And of course, that applies to us as communities too, right? Just as individuals, we have to have accountability and connection and relationship in order for our goals and dreams and visions to move forward. We have that as a community too. In fact, that's probably the whole purpose of community, right? Why would anybody show up at a community like this unless we felt that at some level it helped us move forward in our own goals for ourselves or for our world? So, just as we have hopes and dreams and visions for our individual lives, we also have hopes and dreams and visions for our families, for this congregation, for our state, for our nation, for Unitarian Universalism as a whole, for our world, for our planet. We have these dreams and visions and goals. We have to remember that in order to make those things become realities, we have to take bold action, make a commitment, be willing to be held accountable, even before we know how it's going to turn out. Maybe even before we're even sure that we are even remotely capable for the task we've set ourselves. We don't know. But that's why we work as a community. We hold each other accountable to our personal dreams and to our collective visions. And we come together for that magic, for those moments of surprise support and help and additional inspiration. You know, sometimes somebody else will say, well, that's a great idea, but what if we tried it this way? And then suddenly we have a whole much better approach to the dream or goal or vision. So community is really about connecting in that way. It's really about accountability in a good way. It's really about when I say, I jokingly said to people who are here this morning, if I say when I go on sabbatical time, I'm going to get some writing done, and you check on me and you talk to me partway through my sabbatical and say, have you done your writing? And I say, oh, no, I haven't gotten anything done yet. You say to me, well, get yourself in the chair and get some writing done. That's good accountability. That's good accountability. And we're here to support each other and help each other, not just on our personal dreams, but on our collective values. So I'm really grateful for all of you. I'm really grateful for this community. I'm really grateful that we are committed to justice and creativity and beauty and peace and equity and making the world a better place together. Whatever we can do or dream we can do, let us begin it together. Let us help one another by telling each other what we dream, by talking about it, by taking bold action together, and by trusting this community and each other to create genius and power and magic collectively. I know that it's possible, and I hope that it is so. One of the things I would encourage you to think about is if you have some kind of a dream or a passion or a goal or a vision that you're really interested in, and you want some accountability and some support for that, you can email me about that, or you can tell somebody else in the community. Over the next couple of years, I will be taking my sabbatical staggered out in little chunks over the next couple of years, which means we're going to have lots of Sunday mornings when lots of you will have the opportunity to share your passion with the congregation. So if you have something you really care about and you would like to talk to the congregation about it, let me know. And the worship team will be plugging in lots of wonderful, passionate, committed, bold speakers who could be you into our Sunday services in the future. So let us know about that. I'm not going to extinguish our chalice because we're going to have our congregational meeting where we're going to be talking about our commitments. But I invite you to just kind of take a minute and feel what it would feel like to allow that light of that chalice to be something that you actually feel with you when you think about your dreams. That supportive passion of the community, our willingness to constantly seek new ideas, new creative truths, and passion, creativity, justice, support, all of those. Take that into your heart as you go into your day and your week. May it be so.